problem is going to be operating this. Okay. I think it's fitting to talk to the members of the Historical Society about redevelopment because the legislature declared it history in 2012. It all began in 1945 with the passage of the California Community Redevelopment Act, and it lasted until the legislature shut it down in 2012. Because redevelopment agencies often use the power of eminent domain to take property, the same bill very, very strictly limited the way that eminent domain can be used after 2012. It can only be used for public works projects. There's no more taking it, turning it over to a developer and building something better. Okay, how did redevelopment work? After a city council declared that they were going to form a redevelopment agency, they had to define the area, draw a map, record it, and at that point in time, the property tax that the county received was frozen for the county. But as redevelopment occurred and better buildings were built, the property value went up, the assessed valuation went up, so the property taxes went up. And the city then got the difference between what the county was receiving and whatever the new property tax was. That was called an increment. And for 60, 70 years, this was called increment funding. So if you ever hear a government talk about increment funding, it's the difference between what the property tax was and what the new valuation, what the new property tax is and the new valuation. So a city council didn't have to be the redevelopment board, but in every instance in Ventura County and every instance I know of, the city council acted as the redevelopment board. If they were elected by the people and they were going to be doing all this new stuff in the city, they wanted to be the ones deciding what would be coming in, what developers would be doing it. So, you know, it was just another meeting that a city council member had, usually immediately before the city council meeting. They all ran together. And I did say that they bought the property. They would then turn it over to a private developer. The private developer would redevelop what was going on.
Are you taking questions during it?
Sure.
So the incremental money that would come in, what were the restrictions, if there were any restrictions on how that money?
Good question, thank you. The restrictions on the use of the money were that when you developed your plan, when they developed the plan, developed the area, they had to tell what they thought was going to happen in this area. So then, in order to make it happen, they had to hire extra staff to develop plans, to work with the developers who were going to be doing the redevelopment. And so they took out loans. They had to have the loans so they could use eminent domain to take the property, because you couldn't take it for free. You had to pay somebody something. Usually, some cities paid market value, some cities paid less than market value, depending on how they negotiated or how fiercely they used their eminent domain power. But they had to have the money, so then the money had to be used to repay the bonds. It could also be used to pay for their staff, and after redevelopment occurred, it could be used for certain things within the redevelopment area. You could pave the streets within the redevelopment area. I'll get to each city in a little bit. We're going to go through city by city. So what was accomplished in Western Ventura County. These are things that happened in Port Hueneme, and I'll get to these in a little bit. But as I told people earlier, I'm only going to give you what I thought were the biggest or the most important projects in each of the cities in the Western County. Because if I told you everything every city did, we'd be here well into tomorrow. There's just too much that happened. So let's start with Port Hueneme. These, the beach, the parking. I mean, the beach was here, but it was improved and made better. And believe me, your beach is the benchmark for beaches. It is. The walk, the picnic tables, the windbreaks, the barbecue pits, the trees, the landscaping, all of this was put in with redevelopment money. So how did they get the money? Well, in 1962, the city of Port Hueneme, I'm not a dual processor, I apologize. The city of Port Hueneme formed the very first redevelopment district in Ventura County. Port Hueneme had incorporated in 1948. Okay, it incorporated in 48, so it was the newest city in the county, and it was the first one. I don't know why I keep trying to call your past mayor the wrong name, but Mayor Miranda.
There's a park.
I need to think of the Miranda rights, don't I? Okay, Mayor Miranda heard about it, he learned about redevelopment, and he really pushed for it because he did not want Port Hueneme to continue looking like and giving out the image that it was giving at that time. So I'm sure all of you know about this, but I found this history fascinating, so I'm going to go through it. Thomas Bard was a businessman who was sent to Ojai, and in Ojai he managed 350,000 acres of a man who worked for the government in D.C. And he owned all this land, so he sent Mr. Bard out to take care of his land and to find oil on it. That's what they were looking for. Well, he found oil, but it was very poor quality. So then he had to sell off all the land, and that developed into the Ojai area. But he liked this area, so he stayed here. He did a lot for many parts of Ventura County. He laid out and developed all of Somas and the farms in that valley on the Las Posas Valley on over to Moore Park. He did a lot, but in Port Hueneme, he saw that there were blocks and blocks of trucks hadn't been invented yet. Lots and lots of wagons with farmers waiting to load their merchandise, their crops onto ships in the harbor. And so he built a 1,500-foot wharf, this wharf, and then you could have more than one of these large boats coming in and load them up, and it really sped things up. And he knew exactly where to go because he knew there was this deep, deep channel out there. So you could have larger boats coming in to the 1,500-foot wharf, and because they came along that underwater channel. So he built his house here, and what happened in this area? Well, you had a lot of sailors coming in. The sailors, oh my word, they were just off the boat. They had been months and months coming from who knew where, or weeks. And so businesses cropped up that catered to sailors. Not city sailors, but to sailors from all of these ships that were coming in. There were a lot of businesses, bars, card parlors, houses of prostitution, all kinds of things that By the time it got down to when Mr. Miranda was mayor, he didn't want that kind of an image for his city. And so he convinced the other council members to go into redevelopment. So I didn't mean to bore you with a lot of history. You probably knew about Mr. Bard, but it related to me in a way that I thought we needed so we could go on with why Port Hueneme felt it was really in need of redevelopment. Yes?
So I know the port was built just before 1940 or thereabouts. Was the wharf still in use up until that point? Or?
No, I'm going to get to that. Just hang on. So, the wharf went, there was a big storm in 1938, and it blew, the wharf was ruined, and by 1938, so it went on for quite a few years, you know, from, he built it in
1872.
1872, and so in 1938, but by then, the railroad had come through. It came through in 1906, down in through this way, and out through Camarillo. The Coast Highway had been built. The Coast Highway was the first real highway between San Francisco and Los Angeles. Before that, it was kind of this and that going together. But the series of highways that we knew as U.S. highways when we were young, those were part of FDR's effort to get everything unified to put people to work. So they connected all these little roads and made them into highways. So that made it so trucks could then carry some of these crops. And the need for ships in the wharf no longer existed in the amount that it had before then. So I told you all about the businesses. I'll just show you a couple. And what I neglected to say early on was I thank Beverly for so many things and sending me pictures just randomly, but some of them got me going and we found different things. And so, you know, these are pictures of Port Hueneme that came from this museum back in the day. And so it isn't anything like we thought about, but there's a hotel. There isn't a single female there. I don't know where they were.
Working.
Charlotte,
Yes.
that picture on with the wagons, that would probably
Yes.
be the street right out here.
Yes,
Market Street.
Yes, Market Street. That was Market Street. So anyway, they started the redevelopment, but what else was here? Beverly told me, and I didn't know this until I got here today. This was a swamp. This was all built, this area was filled when they did the trenching and dug out the harbor for the Port District, which existed before World War II, before the U.S. government came in and took everything. They took the port and they took another 1,500 acres. It's supposed to be temporary, but we all know how temporary government things are, don't we? They're still going on. So, with the exception of the port, which did go back to the Port District after the war. However, they were left with all these businesses here. The city incorporated. Most of the businesses were not the type that brought in sales tax. Cities exist on money that's coming in. Property tax, sales tax. The things that were in this area, the whole of Port Hueneme, were very low assessed things. It was junky, it was trashy. That was exactly what they wrote in their plan. They were going to convert so many rundown homes into better homes. They wanted to, I'm trying to find it here as I can, but they wanted to create a better image. They wanted to create a better life for their residents, and they wanted to have a form of income. So what Mr. Miranda, Mayor Miranda, wanted was for Port Hueneme to be a beautiful beachside city. And you know, if he could come back today, or if he's looking down on it, I think his goal was accomplished. But it took a lot to get here. So, this is Anacapa View, single-family homes on Surfside Drive. It is really difficult to tell what it looked like then, and here it is now. This is some of what happened. In its first 6 years, I have this one first because in the Port Hueneme redevelopment district's first 6 years, a $10 million project raised entire blocks. They had to pay to relocate the people who lived in those homes, the people whose businesses were taken, and many of the rundown homes had true single wall construction and dirt floors, some without toilet facilities. So this replaced those.
So that was in what decade or year?
That was, it started in the 60s. It began in, so it was formed in 62, is that what I said?
Yes.
62, and it took a few years to acquire the property and all that, but it was still in the mid-60s that construction started. And you know, first, I'll go through this for Port Hueneme and Port Hueneme only. The rest of the cities all had to do this for their projects. But first they had to tear everything down. Then they had to lay out where the streets were going to be if the streets weren't going to be in the same place where they had been. Then they had to dig down, put in water pipes, storm sewers, pave everything, put in curbs and gutters, and then they could start construction. So all of that, after planning, takes a year to 2 years, depending on whether it's a rainy year or not. So, you know, there were a lot of things, but this is Surfside. This was built between 73 and 85. And at that time, developers, they had invitations out for developers to make proposals. They were offered incentives to build 1,250 market rate beach homes. At the same time, Port Hueneme Beach Project expanded the beach to 50 acres with curving sidewalks, children's playground equipment, public restrooms, beach picnic pads, and tables and barbecue pits with windscreens. So that's why I say you have the benchmark. I've been not all over the world, but I've been to 80 countries, and we go to beaches, and I have never, well, I have. I've seen one beach in Australia that I thought came up to Port Hueneme Beach, and I measure everything by Port Hueneme Beach.
Are you a resident here?
No, I own a home here, but I live in Camarillo. We have rental property around the county. So this is Miranda Park. This is Mr. Miranda, as I said, was a council member and mayor, and he's the one who pushed for redevelopment, and this park was named after him. And it also has a lot, and I want to talk about your parks, because I added up from the city's website. You have 92 acres of parks, in public parks in Port Hueneme. Port Hueneme is 5 square miles, or a tad more than 3,000 acres. So for a city of 3,000 acres, to have 92 acres in public parks, I think that is really good. My city doesn't have anywhere near that. And so I think that's something that is, you guys can really be proud of.
And you get a lot of tax revenue from the outlets.
We do. And we don't own any park. Well, we own 2 parks. The Park and Rec District, which is a whole different government agency with a whole different elected board. It has the rest of the parks.
By the way, on Miranda Park, just as a footnote, I don't know if you know that, but within the park, and it had to be for the last decade, I would think, they have a pickleball complex, and that attracts people from far and wide throughout the entire county. It's
Yeah.
like
Because
the
for years
best-
we didn't have pickleballs.
Yeah, so but it's like a magnet in
Right.
this whole area.
Another component of redevelopment was rehabilitating homes that are in the area. Some homes, there was just no way to rehabilitate them. If they had single wall construction, dirt floors, and no toilets, you couldn't come in and just make it a better home. You know, you just had to get rid of those things and start again. But some homes were just fine. They just needed a little more love. And so this is a picture that Beverly got me of the before and after of one home. But there were quite a few homes in Port Hueneme. And some of those were outright grants to people, and some were loans that had to be repaid. And all housing authorities had to do that because you can't just, well, Port Hueneme put a lot of money, a lot of its redevelopment into homes for people because they wanted to improve the city's image and create a better lifestyle for the residents. So that was their way of doing it, was through homes. Okay, I'm gonna go to Ventura next. Now this is hard for me to imagine, but from what I read in Ventura's original plan, this whole beach area was nothing but a slum. A lot of little shacks, no running water. I mean, your best for running water was bathing in the ocean, right? It was really a bad place.
What years are you talking about?
Theirs was after, they formed their redevelopment district in 1966. And they started immediately. They tore down everything along the beach and acquired the land. The first project was to build the promenade, and it goes from the wharf all the way down to Surfers Point and a little bit past. People use that all the time. I don't know if you go down there. I used to take my grandson down, and he loves to take pictures, so, you know, birds. But I was just amazed at how many people use that promenade daily for their walks, their runs, their bicycles. You take their kids down there for tricycles. There's playground equipment. It's nothing like your beach, but it is. It's a great place. And they built the 4-story parking facility, and they brought in the Crown Plaza Hotel. The parking facility was sometimes charges, sometimes doesn't, but the hotel brought in a lot of city taxes that they put on hotels. So that was their first project. They also, at the same time, redid Main Street. Main Street, they helped property owners really with facade development. They knew that, well, they put in all of the palm trees. they redid the streets. And I remember this, I moved here in '75, but they were in the process then of redoing their downtown streets. They made crosswalks for people. Parking was all angle parking and one-way streets. They had a lot, their goal after the beach, which was one project called the Beach Project, their next project was the Main Street Project, and its goal was to save all of the historic buildings. So they'd had a lot of banks. There was a time there when banks were merging and closing and folding up, and all the savings and loans went away. And so they wanted to save those old buildings. So they did what they could to encourage, and I can remember there were a lot of used furniture stores in those buildings. They wanted restaurants. They wanted anything that would bring in sales tax money. And this is certainly a beautiful picture. I don't remember what it looked like before. I can't say that I used to go down to downtown Ventura before that. But this was late 60s into the mid 70s project. They also had 2 theaters. This theater was done with redevelopment money. I did not read any place that this one was, but this is it says Ventura Theater. It's the, I'm not good with names.
Majestic.
This is the Majestic Theater, and this is the,
Is that the Century?
The Ventura, that's the Ventura one, and then the other one is, I think, the
The one off Johnson?
no, they're
No.
both in the Main Street area. This one has not.
That's not the Century 10, I think it is, yeah. But
Yeah.
the Ventura Theater is original. That's an
Right,
original.
that's the original one, and this is the
That's the one that's around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the city, I'm
Oops.
getting my towns and my theaters mixed up, and I apologize. But this theater has music plays, it
Right.
has things other than movies now. And I believe right now it's not operating, but the redevelopment brought this one back to life. It really did. But their specification was that it couldn't interfere with what was happening at this one with live entertainment. So those are the kinds of specifications and requirements that a city could put on. You could tell a developer, and you could do that because you're giving him the building, you're giving him the land. It's free. You took it, you paid for it with redevelopment money, you got a loan for it, a bond. You have to repay the bond with the increment funding. But you gave him something, so then you can tell him, oh, you've got to do this, but you're going to make a theater, you're going to keep the theater, you can't change the use, or you have to come back and get the city council's approval. We could tell you you had to keep the original theme, or you had to change it to a new theme. Ojai has very strict requirements on everything's got to be the same theme. Other cities might tell you we want it to be 20s, 30s, maybe Art Deco, whatever they wanted. But that's what that was.
Were there any state requirements that they
No.
had to? It was all determined by the local
The state
jurisdiction?
requirement was that the money you took out in loans had to be used to pay for that specific thing that you took the loan out for. So the last thing that I'm
Oh, yeah.
talking about.
Went too far.
Oh, I went too far, sorry. Every redevelopment project had to have a component of housing. So Ventura, up to what I've told you about now, and up to that point in time, hadn't done anything with housing. And you didn't have to do it all together. So you could put in your beach thing and then your downtown and then come in later with housing. So these are, and Ventura got around to its housing part later, but these are called wave lofts. This is for
Artists.
In 1998, they filed their housing plan in Ventura, and it went farther with the construction of a 4-story parking structure near Main Street. They finally realized with bringing in all these new people, businesses, and all of their customers, they had a parking problem, so they built that. They assisted with the Century 10 Theater, and they, housing of, the Encanto Del Mar is at Thompson and Oak. This project right here, it was built for, and they rent to people who work in the retail sector of the downtown area of Ventura. That's what this was built for. So mainly lower income people, but they were supposed to be from Ventura, and I don't know if the courts still allow them to restrict it to people from Ventura or not. The courts have made some changes in those types of requirements in the last little bit. This is called WAVE. The WAVE apartments are Working Artists Ventura, and that opened in 2009. It houses 69 live-work studios for painters, sculptors, dancers, poets, musicians, and filmmakers. And there are 15 that are reserved for low-income families. And I'm assuming most of the other people are not really high-income people either. But I think the lofts, I don't know if you remember, it was very, very controversial when they proposed to build that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, people, that's the thing. I was on my city council for 36 years, and you say something about, we're going to do something to serve the lower income people. The next meeting, you get all these people coming in, they'll say, we don't want low income people in our area. And half the time, you look at these people and you think, you're living in low income housing we built 10 years ago. You just don't know it. But nobody ever wants anything for people with lower incomes, and it's a real shame because there are a lot of good people who just don't have a lot of money. So, here comes Ojai. This is the only thing I have for Ojai, but everything in Ojai has to match their theme, and they call their theme, I'm gonna read it here, Oxnard. Mission architecture.
Can I ask a question before you get too far into
Sure.
Ojai? I'm just wondering on the success of some of these projects, like particularly the artist lofts, have they documented or noticed, like that being a catalyst, for other things happening
I don't know.
in that downtown area? Is it?
I don't know. I really don't know. But this is all I'm going to talk about in Ojai. Ojai does not share a tremendous amount on its website. Ojai right now has I don't know about them all, but a good many contract employees. They've had a lot of staff turnover. Nobody has a memory of anything. And I just wasn't able to get much from Ojai. So I'm going to apologize. I probably could have dug deeper and gone to Ojai and spent a few days reading through all of their old things, but I didn't because I wanted to get on with other cities. And so I'm going on to Oxnard. Oxnard started in 1976, so it wasn't as early as either Port Hueneme or Ventura or Ojai. One of its first projects was called the CCPR project, the Central City Revitalization Project, and it covered 568 acres. Plaza Park was the center of it, and they brought in, that wasn't the one where they brought in the theater. It was the one where they redid downtown streets, making them one-way, which in itself is controversial. They redid the parking. They started a little bit on the other side of Oxnard Boulevard, but not so much as the next project, which was the Hero Project. The Hero Project brought in, it went back, it redid some of what had been done originally, because there were a lot of people who didn't like some of the one-way streets. They didn't like the parking. So what did they do? They brought in all of the old buildings that are at Heritage Square. They wanted to make their downtown a gathering place for their residents. So they brought in this, and it's got a large square. They moved, was it 5 homes? I'm having a hard time talking.
Yeah, I think it's 5. Yeah.
They brought in 5 homes, a water tower, a storage facility, and they centered them around the square. That square is used for concerts. Well, first of all, those buildings can be rented for parties or weddings or whatever.
Restaurant?
So it's restaurants. It's bringing in a lot of money to the Heritage Square Foundation. They have concerts. They have dances out there for just public dances. You don't have to pay. You just go. They have created what they set out to create with Heritage Square. A place where people can come downtown. Then with that enticement, they were able to bring in a lot of restaurants that hadn't been there before. They went around and they offered incentives to building owners and tenants alike to improve their facades, their signage, make downtown someplace people want to come. And they really did change it. Then they later brought in the theater that's near Plaza Park, and they went across. It wasn't redevelopment funds that created their transit center, but there are a lot of buildings along 5th Street and going out about a block from 5th Street that and the buildings that face the transit center. Which they really put a lot of money into improving those buildings to bring people in. They wanted people to feel good and secure about using the transit center. This transit center is where Metrolink stops, Amtrak stops, regional and local buses all stop there. So you can go one stop and get on whatever you need to go someplace else. And there aren't too many places in the county that have that, if you think about it. They did a good job on that. So the area around that, this is really nice. I can warm my hands.
I hope it doesn't blow up on you.
So Oxnard has one other project. And that project, and a lot of their housing came on this last project. It's just called the Saviors Road Oxnard Boulevard District. And so there's, between downtown going north on Oxnard Boulevard, there's quite a few new apartments. Those are part of their low-income housing component of the redevelopment district. And they have 2 other projects that are that still exist. And I know I said it all ended in 2012, but I'm gonna get into explaining why these projects are still going, why they're still collecting redevelopment money, and it's, you know, it ain't over till it's over. So, this other project has run into some opposition, but plans continue, including commercial, residential, and civic projects. They are either working on or they just completed a 20-unit townhome low-income project at 5489 Saviors, and they're in the process of converting a bank that was a catty corner from the, I call it the Mervyn Shopping Center.
Yeah.
It shows you.
So
John
long.
Flynn used to have his office there.
Yeah, but that tall old bank building, that's going to be their, a police precinct station. So now we go to Santa Paula. The City of Santa Paula Redevelopment District was formed in 1980. It covered 1,104 acres, which is 37% of the city. That's a lot of the city. Not as much as Port Hueneme's, but a good percentage of the city. It too focused on improving the central business district, and it included grants and loans for business facade enhancement and building restoration, as well as streetscaping to bolster the downtown's appearance with a focus on economic development. And economic development is code words for bringing in more sales tax to the city and providing more jobs for residents. That's what they want. And so this is downtown before they started. Same street as close as I can find it after.
I love this.
This is called Green Alley. This was what their plan described as an unsafe, trashy alley that led, and I'm not making judgments, I'm going from what they wrote in the beginning of the plan. We plan to change it from this to that. So out here is downtown, back here is an old parking lot. People had to get, the businesses didn't have backdoor access. So people had to get around there or go through this alley. So they bought this. It was previously privately owned. They put in storm sewers. They put in landscaping. They have seating here. At one end is a fountain, and the Chamber of Commerce has small events there. It's not like the type of concert they might have at Heritage Square in Oxnard, because it's bigger, but it's a small thing where people can sit. They also have some planters you can sit on, but I'm not sure how comfortable that would be.
It's nice.
But it's a nice area. It's a very nice area. There's another alley that was just as trashy and people felt unsafe in, and it was called, what was it called? I guess I have to get over Santa Paula. South Alley. South Alley was another connector to the parking lot in the back that was previously known for crime and trash. That's what they wrote. They decided to put murals there. These two murals are not there. I could not find, and I didn't take pictures of the murals there, but they furthered it. This is called Mural Alley by some, and it's called Mural Walk by some. But they decided to take their murals farther, and if you go to Santa Paula and get down by City Hall and go from downtown, you can complete a loop by following their murals, and their murals will tell the history. They have a train, so that was part of their history. They have one dedicated to oil. This one is depicting it because it was once known as the citrus capital of the world. They have one with Hispanic culture. There's just, I think there are 9 murals. And so, all I can say is that I dealt with graffiti for 36 years as a council member. I hope they're all covered with that stuff so that spray paint just washes right off. Because eventually somebody will not respect all of this money and all of this effort and bring a spray paint can out and try to tag it.
Although in general, it seems like when a city beautifies with murals or other art, that there's not much graffiti that comes after that. I think that's been just my...
Oh, we've had it. I don't know about Port Hueneme, I don't know about Santa Paula, but I do know Camarillo sure has. And we had to go back and redo some of our things, and then we put that paint on, or whatever it is they put on, that
Ceiling.
yeah, sealant of some kind, that the paint after that will just run down. Better to have a little pile on the sidewalk than have something ruined.
We have a question.
Yes.
On Santa Paula. Is there any hope that the oil museum might come back someday?
I don't know. It merged with the other museum there, the one across from
The Ag Museum
No,
or the Santa Paula?
they've got 5 museums
Yeah,
there.
there's the Santa Paula Art Museum.
I think they sold it to the city for
I think they
$1.
It's the city.
Yeah,
So
and
it's-
I think the city, last I heard, they were trying to get one of the other museums.
Oh, I think they sold it to the city, and then one of the oil companies agreed to help.
They're still looking for funding. They're looking
I
for funding.
don't think it's open yet, but their plans are to reopen it.
Yeah,
It's such a good museum.
but
Yes.
not with
Last I heard it
with
was-
all the stuff that it had before. No.
Yeah, I heard that somebody came here. I think you and I were here that one day.
Yeah.
That was familiar with that and said they were clearing out or getting rid of
All that good
all
stuff.
the stuff inside.
Yeah. Okay.
So Santa Paula took a different tack at the end.
Yes.
It's not the one you're thinking of.
Oh, it's not?
Santa Paula didn't close up shop because they still had projects they were planning to complete. So like all the other cities, they went ahead and worked on them. However, they didn't take any money and continue with and start any new projects even though they had money for it. But I'll get into all that in just a little bit. What they did was turn their economic development efforts over to the Chamber of Commerce. And through a lot of effort, they recently, in 2019, got the downtown property owners to bid on what's called a, there are 2 kinds of them, I want to make sure I get it right. A PBID, a Property Business Improvement District, which means these people voted to put a certain amount of tax on their property, and that money goes to the administrator, not the city. They choose the administrator, and then the administrator maintains all of this work that was done. The painting, the murals, the paintings, and all that. And this project was left, the Tower Theater. So it's under private ownership now, and the owner has committed to bringing it back to what it was in its glory. It was built in 1911, and it was known for its Spanish language program. For a while it was in limbo. It's no longer a redevelopment project, but the owner, whose name is David Berger, hopes to bring it back with its historic charm. So that's good, and you can get people to do this stuff if you've got other stuff around that is an incentive.
Mhm.
So he thinks, okay, so he's on that street I showed you. The street looks better than it used to. The storefronts are better. There's landscaping. There's more restaurants. People will come down and go to his theater. He's thinking,
There's more nightlife there now.
yeah. Okay. So I'll get to Camarillo last. Okay. This is not a great picture, but this is Camarillo's old town. Camarillo decided to put its money into its old town. We had a lot of used clothing stores, charity stores, there were a few antique stores. There were other stores that called themselves antique stores, and they were really junk stores. You could find anything from rocks to I don't know what in those stores. But our property owners were telling us, and those were all tenants, but our property owners told us, we need help, we need something. So we formed, we were I think the last in the county to form a redevelopment district. Ours was formed in 1996.
Wow.
And the first thing we did was, I like to say we dug right in. We went down to Ventura Boulevard and we tore it down 10 feet. We found pipes that nobody had any record of. The county didn't have any record of. We found old gas pipes. We found water pipes from 3 different water companies that had gone out of business. We took all that out. We replaced the water pipes, made them the right size, replaced the sewer pipes, made them the right size. We had the gas company come in and they redid the gas pipes and the cables and everything. We didn't want our street dug up right up after we'd finished. So then we had to fill in and repave. We went from four lanes to 2 lanes with a median. One of the complaints we'd had was that people sped down Ventura Boulevard at 50 miles an hour. So you make it narrower, you make a big deal about your crosswalks, you put a median in, and landscaping and parking on the outside, and people slow down. I didn't believe it was going to happen, but it has happened. And so that is one of the things that draws people to a commercial area. So we, put a few statues. We tried to get buildings in one block, and often in these older areas, you have one owner for a block or a half a block. So that owner was more than willing to do something to the front of his store if we gave him a grant or a loan or a very low income loan, very low interest loan, or maybe just a grant. But they all said, oh, we can't afford an architect. So city staff drew it all up, would take it down this block, that block. They look different. We don't have a central theme in Camarillo, except we wanted it to look old. In tearing out some of the facades, we found some beautiful old buildings, some from, I think one was 1911. It had been covered up 2 or 3 times. So, it now says the Lewis Building. and it turned out to be something that none of us ever thought it would be. But it was good in the end. This was
Can you show the history of the old clock?
that is a clock that was bought in about 1998.
Okay.
And the city just put it there. It was part of the design, yeah, it wasn't old. And the first place we put it, first place we planned to put it, we had to cut down a tree to do it. And we discovered there was a nice bell tower and a bell that nobody could see because the big tree covered it.
Right. Wow.
So we had to move where we put the clock. This stuff, you have a plan and you say we're going to do a clock and we're going to do seating and we're going to bring in people, but you don't say exactly where in your plan. I mean, you plan and you have a design, but you can change elements of your plan, or you could. This was a gas station and a garage. It had been for years. The soil was contaminated. The water board told the property owner he had to clean up all the gas out of it, and told the garage owner he had to clean up all of the, they used to have these big pits, and you'd change oil, and sometimes the oil got all over, or you'd change the brake fluid, and the brake fluid would just flow down, so all that stuff seeped down into the ground. So the city took that with redevelopment funds.
To sell?
We remediated, and it wasn't cheap to remediate. I think it was like $1.5 million or more. It took years. And then we sold it to a man who developed it as, it's called mixed use. So if you hear mixed use, that means there's commercial on the bottom and housing on the top. And 6 of his units are for low-income people, and the rest are for median-income people. And the federal government determines what's low-income and what's median. But these are all restaurants along here. There's 6 restaurants. And it turned out much better than the old gas station that guy could not sell his property. And when he heard the city wanted to buy it, oh man, did that go up in value. Well, we had 3 appraisers, and it wasn't nearly as valuable as he thought, but it was the last thing that our city took under eminent domain, because we did not want that block with contaminated land to be part of our redevelopment district, part of our downtown. This is just some more. What you see right now, if you drive down Ventura Boulevard, is our last project, and it continues. We had a park. Our parks are owned by the Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District. And the one on Ventura Boulevard didn't get much use. Not too many people lived there that had little kids. So it was neglected. The picnic tables were rusted, or they'd been removed. They were metal ones that were in the ground. They'd been removed, and there were some this high, the metal things that hadn't been sawed off. The trees were not taken care of. The grass was all, and it was adjacent to the original fire station in our area that the city had taken and gotten from the county. And it had a lot of asbestos and problems, so it had to be raised. And we wanted to work with the Recreation and Park District to build a bigger park. Well, that didn't work out, so we ended up buying the park from them for $1 million. And then we developed a plan, and we had the money, but it never worked out.